Greg, China understandably dominates, but a really very different approach when it comes to China from Singapore and other nations in Southeast Asia to what we might see from Australia or the United States, Greg.
Well, yes, Kieran, I think Singapore is very close to us, very, very close. So ASEAN is itself tremendously split on China. I mean, they've been working on this code of conduct since Adam was a boy. You know, that's not going to have any effect on anything, and they can't produce anything because they're so split. Several ASEAN states are strategic clients of China. Others blow hot and cold. A lot of ASEAN nations have a lot of trouble with their persecuting their ethnic Chinese minority. But I thought Lee Hsien Loong there gave a very, very impressive performance. He's the senior statesman of the region. He's been a tremendous friend of Australia. Now, Singapore is a tiny island amidst a sea of, not altogether friendly folks around it, but it still speaks great sense. So it's saying it supports the United Nations law of the sea. So you don't find Malaysia's Prime Minister saying that quite so much because that's very disagreeable to the Chinese. Strong emphasis on supporting freedom of navigation Singapore is traditionally a strong supporter of the US presence in the region. I think, if anything, they're tending to be a little more forward-leaning than we are at the moment. I'm a bit critical of the Albanese government. It won't mention the word China now, except for that formula, we agree where we can, disagree where we must, and so on. But I thought that was a very fine performance from Lee Hsien Loong, and we're going to miss him. He's been a great friend of Australia, and he's not only completely in charge of Singapore, but he's a very big influence in ASEAN and his strategic view and ours. So there, one note for you, Kieran, he's going to welcome our nuclear subs. New Zealand says our nuclear subs can't go in their ports. So New Zealand's supposed to be our best friend. It won't allow our nuclear subs to go in their ports. Singapore welcomes them. Now, China, of course, is campaigning against AUKUS. So Singapore may be a little less declaratory here and there, but you can tell what side they're rooting for.
Yeah, and he went to reiterate that too today. You're right. That's a very good point. I want to ask you about the other big story this week. Internationally, you got the Supreme Court ruling in Donald Trump's favour ahead of Super Tuesday, which normally has a great deal at stake around Super Tuesday. But this year, it seems we know who the main candidates will be for president.
Yeah, Super Tuesday will presumably be a coronation for Trump and Biden in their respective parties. But this Supreme Court ruling is very important. Now, I think almost all the prosecutions of Trump are an abusive process. I don't like Trump. I detest him. I think his behaviour is morally despicable. But it's almost certainly not illegal. And the things he's been charged with and the absurd penalties that have been levied on him, they will fall away as the matters get to higher and higher courts. Now, you can have complete confidence in the Supreme Court. You might say 3 of their judges were appointed by Trump. But this is an apolitical court in its legal decisions. They wouldn't hear for a second Trump's claims that the election was stolen last time. They threw those out of court. They had nothing to do with Trump when he wanted them to make politicised decisions. But this absurd decision from Colorado and a couple of other states that Trump can't go on the ballot because they've decided he's guilty of insurrection, whereas he's been convicted of absolutely nothing. I mean, this is a monstrous offence to democracy. The Supreme Court has made the right decision. But not only that, I think every single Trump legal matter, as it goes higher and higher in the judicial chain, will be decided in Trump's favour because the legal actions are so baseless. The Trump needs to be defeated at the ballot box, not in the courtroom. And criminalising politics is a terrible way for Western societies to go.
And defeating him at the ballot box looks like it'll be a tough ask right now, at least according to the polls. Greg Sheridan, great to see you as always. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks, Kieran.